X-Men 97 is... X-Men 97 is... Well, I can tell you what X-Men 97 is not, and it's for young audiences, because this show, I mean, although it's not explicit, it has some pretty heavy themes that just came out of nowhere, and oh my god, I need to just rant about these first 5 episodes. This is just halfway through the season. Now, this is going to be a mid-season review of X-Men 97. My original plan was to wait until the end of the season and then review the whole show beginning to end, but then episode 5 came out and completely wrecked me. So here's a halfway season review. This show is absolutely amazing, and I'm going to jump into it right here. Just for example, I was preparing to make this video, and these are the notes I took for the first 5 episodes. Those are just the points that I want to talk about for each episode. It's not even a whole summary of each episode. It's just my favorite parts of each episode. So, first of all, let's talk about the X-Men. Now, most people get the gist of the X-Men. They're an allegory for civil rights movements, and just if you're part of a marginalized group, that's what Marvel represents. That's your representation, because the X-Men represent the people that are just blamed for just being who they are and being called monsters for it. It's wonderful storytelling. Now, I was born in 2000, so I was not around for the 90s cartoon, but ever since this show came out, I have been going back and watching it, and it is really good. I understand why it's such a beloved Saturday morning cartoon, and if I was around, I would 100% be a fan of it too. And now that we have introduced the X-Men, let's get to talking about the X-Men 97 reboot, continuation of the old 90s cartoon. Okay, starting from keeping my notes, that way I don't get off track. Episode 1, To Me, My X-Men. Perfect opener to the new season. You get to know every single character, what their whole thing is, and you get a new point of view character in Roberto. When in the 90s cartoon, the point of view character was Jubilee. She was the new X-Men on the block. Now it's Roberto. That's the person we're supposed to be like, oh, he's learning things just along with us. Points from the episode I pointed out were Cyclops, when he's burst into that warehouse and then he's sliding around with his powers. Never have seen Cyclops use his powers like that. That was awesome, because it makes perfect sense, because it's not a laser. I don't know if you guys know this. It's not a laser that comes out of his eyes. It's pure force. It's like a punch, but like pure force. So it pushes him as like a push against someone else would do to, like, if you actually push someone, you know? Other things I wrote down. Storm. Everything that she is doing in this episode is just amazing. Storm, to heed my commands, and I'm not scared of you. Then you are a fool when she hits this dude with a bolt of lightning. Insane. Storm, badass goddess. Awesome. I love whenever they're fighting the main fight scene in the first episode, when they're fighting the Sentinel and that Bolivar Trask that had built in the Sahara, and then they're all done fighting the main ones, and Master Mold stands up, and Cyclops is just give them the forecast. Storm in that scene, if you noticed, the lightning bolts she's creating is creating glass in the sand in the Sahara Desert. That is awesome. That is cool. Storm is by far the best character in episode 1, 100%. And before I go and gush about this show for too long and too fast, I just gotta mention first that the animation itself also is incredible. It feels like 90s nostalgic while also being new and fresh, you know? Like, it looks good. It looks really, really good. Moving on to episode 2, Mutant Liberation Begins. Magneto is now in charge of the X-Men. in Charles Xavier's will. He's technically not dead. He's on a separate planet, getting healed after someone attacked him. You would know this if you watched the 90s X-Men. I just watched a recap before I started watching this new series. But everyone on Earth thinks that Charles Xavier is dead. So his will and testament has Magneto taking over the X-Men. So now he's in charge. He's going around saving mutants all around the globe and humans as well, which is like not his whole deal. So everyone's freaking out. And then in that sequence, one of the points I made is the FOH, the Friends of Humanity. These are the guys walking around in these episodes with the guns, trying to shoot down these mutants. They're 100% on the human side. They want mutants dead. That's what the Friends of Humanity are all about. But they're in the sewers kicking out the Morlocks. The Morlocks are mutants that are so deformed that they can't even live in like human society. So they're like, their only option is to live in the sewers. And they're down there kicking them out. And I love what Magneto says in that scene when he says, you don't even give them the dignity of your filth. And it's like, the writing in these episodes is also super duper good. Now this episode I have a lot of notes for, so let me just bop them out here real quick. The Rogue and Magneto romance is a little weird, big age difference there, but there is precedence for that in the comics, where he's the only one that Rogue can touch without zapping his powers in Life Force away, because of a magnetic field that Magneto can create. What else? Magneto's trial speech, whenever he's telling them that he's just looking out for mutants. He's only ever acted against humans whenever they're attacking mutants. He's only trying to protect his kind, and whenever the people in the government are like, we're just attacking you because you're dangerous, and he's like, well, that's just extermination, which is heavy. It has some heavy elements in these episodes. I like that the Executioner, the bad guy who takes Storm's powers away with that gun, when he's fighting Cyclops, he's like, I hate that you're whining. You're always whining. And meanwhile, he is literally whining throughout the entire fight scene, while Cyclops is just taking it. And he's the one saying, I hate that you're always whining. Which is like, when Storm loses her powers, man, that scene brought a tear to my eye, because you can hear it in the voice acting that she this thing that she loves to do, she controls the weather, she can always feel the moisture in the air, is gone. And she said shivers down my spine when she said, what did he do to me? Because these mutants love their powers, they're proud to be different, and then it was just stripped away from her. That's crazy. And then Magneto's second speech, when he takes them up in the air and he's saying, they're in the past, I would smite you for what you did to Storm. But my friend Xavier challenged me to remember this view of Earth, and at this point, Magneto has taken the court to the edge of the Earth because protesters were getting in there and they were going to attack everybody inside. So Magneto saves them, and he's in the air and he's showing them the Earth from this high point. He's like, Xavier challenged me to remember the Earth like this, how big it is and how small we make it. And man, that line has stuck with me. That's a really good line. On to episode 3. X-Men 97 is also drama. Episode 3, Fire Made Flesh, is a big example of this. We find out that Jean Grey has been a clone this entire time, and nobody knows whenever they were switched. It has been at least 9 months since her and Scott have had a kid. So at the very least, it's been 9 months since Jean was switched out with this clone. Craziness. And might I just say, this clone, whenever she changes into the Goblin Queen, I mean, I'm not gonna say it, but play the clip.
I'm not bad. I'm just drawn that way.
I think the whole repertoire between Morph and Gambit, whenever they come out of the danger room, and he's like, oh, I put you through a pretty big workout, and Morph's like, oh, let's see who has the room next, and he's like, oh, Rogue and Magneto. Rogue and Magneto, Rogue and Magneto, and it just gets under Gambit's skin. That's a funny joke. I like Morph. Morph is another one of those characters where you're like, I just like that this guy's around. He's funny and he's useful. I mean, he can turn into any mutant and have their powers. It's like Mystique, but better. Now whenever they're in the showers and Morph is walking up to what he thinks is Logan and ends up being Mr. Sinister, that also comes from the original 90s cartoon. Morph was taken over by Mr. Sinister and tortured and forced to work against the X-Men. So he has some longing PTSD from that. So I like that they remember to put that in, and that he's still affected by that. It's not just like he just got fixed overnight. He's still recovering from being tortured by Mr. Sinister. I love the Scary Movie vibes. It just feels like an old scary movie where everything is haunted. The walls are haunted. The movie's haunted. It's just a fun atmosphere, you know. Now, Mr. Sinister, what a great villain. In a world where now we have villains where they're trying to make them sympathetic, or you can kind of see where they're coming from, Mr. Sinister is just pure evil. He dumps a baby in a vat of liquid. No hesitation. He's just like, I'm gonna put you in here because I have a plan. Now, X-Men 97 is also very campy, and if you don't know what campy means, it basically means it's very exaggerated. It's not true to life. Sometimes it's just fun. You think like romance dramas and stuff, where like Hallmark movies where like this would never happen in real life, but it's fun to watch. And I like the scene where Mr. Sinister clearly disappears right in front of the clone, and she turns around, sees that the baby has the virus, and then turns back around to get mad at Mr. Sinister, and she's like, he's gone! Like, you saw him disappear. Now, if you're familiar with some of the live-action movies, Deadpool 2, Cable, the guy that was going back in time trying to kill Fire Fist, the kid in that movie, you're kind of already acquainted with who this baby is. It's Nathan Summers. That's Cable. In the future, he becomes Cable. Then we get a post-credit scene of Forge meeting Storm in a Texas bar. Forge, he is a mutant. He can build anything. If you give him the right materials, he has the blueprints in his mind. He can create it all with the power of his mind. He's a really good inventor. He can build anything if you give him enough time and enough materials. And he seems to promise that he can give Storm her powers back. And we will pick up with that in another episode. Episode 4. Now, this is the first episode that I feel like is a little bit of a filler episode. Motendo. It's Jubilee's birthday. She's wanting to go out and spend it in the arcade like old times and have fun, be young. And Magneto says, no, we're not doing that. You're not going to have me seen in an arcade. So she goes to her room. She's ranting to Roberto, like, I just want to have fun on my birthday. Why does Magneto get to tell me what to do on my birthday? Like, what the heck? He's Magneto. To which she sees a video game on her desk where she doesn't own. So she starts it up, and it's Mojo. This guy is crazy. He's an intergalactic like film executive, pretty much, and he feeds off ratings from his shows that play on his planet, from his captive audience. And what a fun way to make fun of film executives, because that's all this character is. You know, you gotta know that's what this character is. He's just a scummy film exec. All he wants is ratings. That's all he cares about. Also, like at the beginning of this episode, the whole Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit love triangle, how Magneto's like, I got you coffee, and Magneto's like, beat you to the pot, brother, and has already making spoons float to bring Rogue some sugar for her coffee. And I just like that Magneto's just rubbing Gambit's face in it. He knows it's getting under his skin. Now, Life Death Part 1. This is just setting up the episode 6, which is going to come right after the last episode that just came out more recently. And this one just felt like it's setting up the episode that's going to come. It dropped that Forge is the one who made the plans to that created the mutant dampening collars and the handcuffs that they put on the mutants to dampen their powers. It came from him because he needed materials to build a prosthetic leg and hand. and the government tricked him into making those plans for materials for that. And when Storm finds this out, she rightfully is angry because his creation led to her losing her powers, which is why he has such an investment in getting her powers back. Also, Forge, with his endless imagination, saying that he could never create something as beautiful as Storm, even if you give him enough time. I thought that was a pretty good pickup line from Forge. I mean, that's his whole thing, is making anything, and he's like, I can't even fathom you. And I thought it left off on a really, really, really good cliffhanger. Forge, who knows what's going on with him, and Storm doesn't have her powers, so we'll see how she fights against this adversary. Especially with Forge now out for the count. He got bit and thrown off screen for the rest of the episode. And now moving on to by far my favorite episode so far. Oof. Now episode 5. Remember It. Genosha. It is an island where mutants go and live in the comics. It's like a safe haven. Mutants can go and live there. There's no people that's trying to, in the comics, even like bad guys, good guys, they all come and they live there in peace because it's the one place mutants can be and not be like attacked. So they go and visit Genosha. It's made to be like a paradise for mutants. It looks wonderful. Everyone's walking around having fun using their powers, and they're not embarrassed and not worrying about sentinels coming or anything. This is also one of my favorite episodes because it has one of my favorite X-Men, Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is by far one of my favorite X-Men. Just the idea he's a Christian, and his mutant ability makes him look like a devil. His first appearance in the comics, he's being ran out of a church because he wanted to go to church, and then everyone thought he was the devil, so they cast him out, which is like really good storytelling. It's the same thing with like someone like Daredevil, where their faith messes with their superheroing, where they don't know if what they're doing is right, or if they struggle with the consciousness of it all because of their faith. It just gives a character more depth. And I like with the whole interview stuff that's going on at the mansion. There's now a new drama, a love triangle with Jean, Wolverine, and Cyclops. Jean kisses Wolverine. And granted, Wolverine is a good guy, even though he truly does want to be with Jean. He turns away and says, go talk to your boyfriend, go talk to Scott. And I like that. Logan, he likes what he likes, but he's gonna do the right thing in the end. Also, like, in the interview, when they're interviewing Scott, and they're mentioning, you had a baby, where's your baby? What do you mean you don't have a baby? Why'd you lie? And he, rightfully so, he's like, because now you have to sit here and prove that I'm a person to you. Like, you guys are, like, humans are always berating the mutants. If we were the same as you guys would all be dead, basically. And that's a heavy line, because with all the hate that the mutants get in this place, in this universe, yeah, he's right. Like, if mutants treated humans the way that humans treat the mutants, they would definitely take over. Also, when it makes the switch from being a nice club vibe to now being a scary genocide, this episode blew my mind. It flips on a coin, and you're scared. You're worried for these characters. You don't know what's going to happen next. And in the original 90s cartoon, Magneto kind of wasn't allowed to mention that he grew up in the Holocaust or around Nazis and everything. That wasn't okay to be on TV in the 90s. So now that they can talk about it, man, whenever Magneto's on the top of the building and he's getting these flashbacks of his parents dead and all the mutants dead, and then him in a concentration camp, and he hurls a train at the Master Mold, and he's just berating it. They will be avenged. I was watching New Rockstars. They break down movies, like Marvel movies and all that, and they brought up a good point that's very symbolic, because the during the concentration camp, the Jews were just packed into cattle cars and trained off to these places. So him just taking this train and using it as a weapon is You can hear it in my voice. I'm trying not to tear it up because this episode, I've seen it so many times. Every single time I watch it, it makes me tear up. I mean, it's very symbolic and it's very beautiful storytelling. I like when Rogue's telling her complicated history with Magneto, how he's pretty much the only human on Earth that she can actually touch, and which is that's a complicated situation, because you gotta imagine what is it like to not be able to touch another human and in your entire life, and if you did, you would kill them and suck their life force out. That's got to be rough. To never feel a hug or a high five or anything, none of it. That must be sad. And then when you find someone, if they're able to do that, you can understand why Rogue isn't like a hard situation, you know. And Gambit, that massive gentleman, takes the rejection like a boss. He just says, "I wagered he's gonna break your heart in two, but till then, hey, we'll be friends." A master, what's it called? Masterclass on how to take a rejection. That's exactly how it should go. Treat her with respect if you truly care about the person. They have a really good line in this episode. Whatever, Val Cooper walks up and Magneto's like, she's just angry that you guys chose me as the leader of Genosha. And she says, well, there's not many places that let a terrorist be their president. And then Magneto goes, well, there's so many places that let their presidents be terrorists. Which is, I mean, do I gotta say it? It's a good line. It's 100% a good line. Now the club scene, if you're wondering what song that was, I went and found it. It is Ace of Base, Happy Nation. Really good song. I've been jamming to it ever since this episode came out. Really feels like you're in the club dancing. Now once again, I just gotta say that the animation on this show is great. When the explosion happens and you go from Rogue's perspective of flying through the debris, and then you cut to just being in the middle of it all, it's just so jarring. It takes you right out of the moment into panic. I like the I like the save that Nightcrawler gets. Right, the beam is coming and he just yanks him and teleports. Like I said, Nightcrawler is one of my favorite X-Men. Love that he's in this episode. Now these final 3 points are, in my opinion, the best three moments of the entire episode. Number 1, Magneto trying to save the Morlocks, and then finally letting go and looking down at Leech and saying, "Do not be afraid." That was sad. And let me tell you, I was watching this episode at work. It was kind of a slow day at work, so I'm watching this episode at work. I'm in tears. I am in tears from this episode, and a customer walks in towards the end, and I'm like having to wipe my tears, and I was like, man, this is such a good episode. I should have watched this at home. Now Gambit absolutely goes out like a true X-Men, runs, saves all those people, and blows up the Master Bolt with his powers. And whenever he got stabbed, I was like, there's no way that's the end. They're not just gonna kill Gambit. And then that purple glow starts glowing, and as soon as I saw that purple glow, I was like, I know what he's doing, and I'm not ready for it. So Gambit's dead. He's on the ground, and Rogue is holding. Now this is the sad part. Rogue's whole power set is that she can suck the life force and life powers from mutants and like people. So if she touches somebody, she can kill them from sucking their life force out. And we cut to her in this crevice from the blast. Sorry. And she's holding Gambit, and she's just holding him, finally able to touch him from skin to skin. And she's just saying, "I can't feel you," which is just so sad because they've never been able to touch up until this point. It's not two hard-crossed lovers, just never able to touch. And now she's finally able to touch him, and there's no life on the other end of that touch. And it doesn't even, that's not even the end of it, because after that I'm crying in the middle of work, and I go on Twitter and I look up the voice actor for Rogue, Lenore Zahn, and I see her, she's being congratulated for her work in this episode, which rightfully so, 100% beautiful work. And I see this. Someone had asked her how she got into that headspace for that line. And she had mentioned that her 17-year-old niece, shortly before she recorded for episode 5, had died from an aggressive form of cancer. And the pain that she was pulling from that line was 100% real. And when I read that, I was like, my goodness, you can hear it in that last line, the sadness of losing someone you love and not being able to feel the life on the other end of that touch. And man, I've been a wreck ever since. This is one of the best shows, not just superhero shows. This is one of the best well-written shows I've ever seen, especially for episodes that are at the most 35-40 minutes long. So thank you for watching. This was my halfway season review of X-Men 97. I'll catch you all at the end of the season for the last 5 episodes. I'm still wanting to work on a big video that hopefully will be out by the end of April. I'm going to be reviewing a movie from my childhood that I'm pretty sure a lot of you don't know about. A lot of people don't really talk about it online. It is a sequel to a movie that people kind of talk about online, but I will see y'all in that video, I guess, and that will be probably the next one coming out. And I'll catch you in the next one, I guess. Have a good one.